You can do it in Roblox or on regular stocks, on meme stocks, gamble with calls, gamble on earning calls, gamble on calls with earning calls. You can gamble on political events, world events. You can bet if Zelensky's going to wear a suit before July, if Jerome Powell's going to say inflation 50 or 60 times in September. And you don't just have to gamble on that. You can gamble on crypto coins, Trump coin, Dogecoin, Farcoin. You can gamble on the champion of Farcoin coin, and you can gamble on any of the posts the champion of Farcoin has ever made on whether they will become popular or not. And if none of that's your cup of tea, you can also just gamble directly within your banking app on a game of roulette, like a gentleman. And don't even get me started on the ads. If you turn on sports, esports, podcasts, not even my favorite political show is safe.
Shout out to Prize Picks, the best app for firearm sports in the game.
You will be bombarded with gambling ads by every famous person you've ever heard of.
DraftKings.
DraftKings Sportsbook.
DraftKings Sportsbook.
Uh-oh. How did we get here? And is it a good thing that we're turning every spare moment of our lives into a game of chance? I'm betting no. There are three things responsible for gambling becoming more mainstream, but the first and biggest trend is simply the mainstream becoming more like gambling. See, Silicon Valley learned a decade ago that gambling mechanics are incredibly good for user retention, so they put them everywhere. Let's say you're shopping online. Well, now you can spin a wheel to unlock prizes. Or if you're playing video games, you can open a loot box, get some randomized items. You can even use those items as virtual currency in a casino we've made a 3-part series about. Or maybe you don't have a problem with loot boxes for adults, but we've also put them in kids' video games because, you gotta start them young. Roblox is the largest game for minors, and they are stuffed with randomized loot boxes. But even if that's fine for you, what about the third-party websites which, against TOS, allow full gambling based on a kid's game? And yes, there are actual kids gambling on these apps.
Right, I just won a bit of profit there. I had 200 Robux. No, I had 200 Robux in profit, 100 Robux in profit, but I lost them. But I had 50 Robux, and I lost
Pick
it.
your hero or villain.
So
I'm not
on
judging.
this mine, on a Robux mod,
Don't
what
have
I'm
to be
gonna
a
do is
witch
buy
to find the
40
magic in
crates
this
now.
world.
No,
But
not
it does
40
help.
crates, but like 4. Like 4 profits. That looks good. Let's go. Let's go. We're in profit. Let's go.
It is absolutely disgusting to see that. Look, I spoke to an insider who worked on this website, Roblox Wild, before it got shut down. He shared data which claimed they made $5,000 a day, or roughly $2 million.
Entire realities consumed
Thankfully,
by
this
chaos.
website got
I
shut down,
won't let
but
that happen.
third-party
30 seconds
gambling
before you
sites
attack.
still
Get
persist
ready.
because copying casinos makes a ton of money. And that's why we've been putting it into everything, including our politics. Prediction markets are the answer to the question of what if we could YOLO on election results of world events. The biggest websites are Polymarket and Callsheet, which have exploded in popularity during the American election cycle. But it isn't just major events that attract bettors. I was recently asked to investigate whether this was a suit that Zelensky was wearing.
All you need to do is
Why?
capture the mission area.
Well, the
Got
prediction
it?
market had bet $200 million in betting volume on this bet. And some of them were really mad that they decided, no, this is not a suit, I guess. Whether you think it is or not, the volume of betting here is insane. And one reason for that is because these companies are exploiting loopholes that allow betting even in states where normal gambling is illegal. Because these companies say they're not a casino, so they don't fall under the same rules. Which is why instead of having to be 21, you can now gamble at 18 on prediction markets. And while there have been legal challenges to this, both of the major companies, Callsheet and Polymarket, have recently brought on the president's son as an advisor, making it hard to see how they're going to be meaningfully regulated. Meanwhile, all the major betting apps are busy launching their own prediction market copycats to get around the same weak rules that we still have regarding betting. And don't even get me started on the other loopholes that are out there. Have you ever heard of the TikTok of sports wagering?
This is Cheddar. We're building the TikTok of sports wagering. Legal in 20 more states than DraftKings. Accessible for 18 to 21-year-olds. Live, in-game, micro-betting. Swipe to predict every moment, every play.
I'm going to stop you right there. You missed it. Cheddar is a new startup trying to combine DraftKings, TikTok and Tinder features into one app. And one of the things they brag about is they're allowing 18 to 21-year-olds as a competitive edge. Guys, can you believe the untapped market of teenagers for gambling? Now, to be fair, Cheddar has not launched yet, but this is obviously the future we're heading to, turning everything into a maximally addictive gambling product.
It's sports wagering.
Yeah. Isn't that the most dystopian thing you've ever heard? We're trying to turn sports betting into slot machines. I mean, the funny thing is this whole product is built around yet another loophole called a sweepstakes casino, and that's how they get around the 21-year-old age requirement. Here's how it basically works. Sweepstakes casinos claim you don't actually need to purchase anything to play. It's kind of not gambling. In fact, you can get free coins to access their games, but they also have a second currency which you can buy. Well, not buy. You get it for free when you buy the worthless coins. For example, their website says if you buy 100 cheddar coins, you get 5 bonus cheddar cash. And that's usually what you can gamble with and redeem for real money.
That's better.
Actually how Stake US works. If you didn't know, Stake International is one of the world's largest casinos, but they aren't allowed here in the United States. So they have an American arm, which is a sweepstakes casino, which has gold coins and stake cash. One Redditor explains how the loophole really works. Quote, one stake cash is 1 USD. They only use gold coins because they need to say that you aren't gambling with real money to stay open in the US. Except, of course, you are actually gambling with real money. They just have a virtual currency workaround, which basically everyone has figured out. Some casinos are just kind of more honest about it than others. Cheddar's basically saying the quiet part out loud. They're going after 18 to 21-year-olds with TikTok, Tinder, sports betting at the pace of slots. And by the way, people are betting on their success. They're actually in a cohort of startups invested in by a Silicon Valley investment firm called A16Z. But if you think that's a bad idea, now let's talk about banks and gambling. I recently made a video on Yada, which is a fintech, which is a complicated story. We've done a ton of work on here and here. But basically, the original pitch was a no-lose lottery, which gamified savings. Lots of YouTubers worked with them, and they acted like a bank. At least at first, until they switched their new business model to be about allowing you to gamble inside the app and lose money, essentially becoming a casino within what is essentially a bank account. Now, I should actually note that Yada recently shut down the banking side and have fully focused on the sweepstakes casino part. I guess it's a more profitable business, but it's a sign of the time that everyone is moving their apps towards gambling. Finance is going the same way. On August 19, 2025, the investing app Robinhood announced they are bringing sports betting prediction markets to their app. In the announcement, the vice president of Robinhood claimed sports betting was a, quote, no-brainer, as we aim to make Robinhood a one-stop shop for all your investing and trading needs. AKA, we noticed people were leaving the other app. We don't like that. We'd like you to never leave our app. And ironically, the very next day, FanDuel, a sports betting app, announced they were bringing stock market betting to their customers.
But I will ask you about what some call the gamification of markets. Why this move? Why FanDuel? Why now?
For us to have a partner like FanDuel and to be able to have 14 million accounts on day one, I'm not becoming a casino, contrary to popular opinion. I didn't buy a casino. These are markets that will be offered to the general public, and we think it's massively exciting for what it is.
And you couldn't have a more perfect image of how finance is embracing the casino and by actually correctly, you can have a after the New York Stock Exchange's owner invested $2 billion into Polymarket. So actually, this is the perfect image of where we are. And the result is a lot of young people now see the stock market kind of more like a betting market. The most popular group on Reddit is personal finance with about 22 million followers. And in second place, Wall Street Bets, where gambling on the stock market is embraced and celebrated. It grew the most during the meme stock craze of 2020, which shifted how some people thought about investing. Instead of being driven by earnings, prices, or fundamentals, people gamble on memes, attention, and buy. People are chasing bigger returns and taking on bigger risks to do so. One measure of this is the amount of debt people are taking out to invest. Margin debt is at an all-time high of $1 trillion, even on an inflation-adjusted basis. Near all-time high is up 5x over the last few decades. Not only that, the rapid growth of zero-day options by retail traders is also a telltale sign. It's grown 5x in volume over 5 years, showing that People are trying to gamble more. Zero-day options are the stock trader equivalent of red or black at the casino. Fast action, massive wins or losses on a single day. But if the stock market is America's casino, then meme coins are basically the back alley bookie who will break your legs. Bigger price swings, faster action. Meme coins are even more degenerate than meme stocks and pump and dump usually within a single day. Among the people who trade these, Pump.5 is the leading destination as the one-click launchpad. Anyone can make a meme coin in seconds, and there is no value in it other than the expectation that someone might be more foolish than you and buy at a higher price than you did. And of course, Pump.Fun is happy to take a cut and make most of the money. Most traders will lose, but now you can also get a cut if you're a content creator who pushes one of these coins. We've seen the same thing from launchpads like Meteora. They allow creators to have a split of some of the trading fees, and it kind of democratizes the grift. Now, anyone can farm their followers and fans for money. You don't have to be particularly sophisticated, and that's actually how Trump made millions of dollars in fees with Trump meme coin without ever selling. He just farmed the fees. And to be clear, this money doesn't magically appear. It's being siphoned away from regular people who mostly lose. It creates a sad ecosystem where most creators are racing to the bottom for attention to get their audiences to pump their worthless coins, leading to a predictable spiral where most are scamming, rage baiting, or otherwise trying to shock each other into becoming the biggest grift of the day.
All the difference.
I fought to end the darkness that
Don't have to be a witch
for the
to find the magic
bandos.
in this.
I will bring peace to this universe, no matter the cost.
If you've ever heard of a zero-sum game where someone has to win for the other one to lose, meme coins are negative sum because of all the trading fees. Most people, by definition, will lose. The real winner, of course, is Pump.Fun and people pushing it. According to one analysis, they've generated revenues of over $800 million for themselves, while almost none of the traders have made significant profits. According to one analysis, 0.4% of all traders will ever make over $10,000. So, almost no one. And look, the reason we're going through all of this is to explain the many ways that gambling is no longer just about slots, cards, brick and mortar casinos. We've injected it into every conceivable aspect of our lives, and that has two effects. One, it's inescapable. You cannot avoid gambling by avoiding Vegas anymore. It's literally everywhere. And then two, it's also harder to understand and study because most researchers are studying like casinos, sports betting, but so much of gambling is not that anymore. So as we get to the numbers and stuff, remember, everything's going to be an undercount. But it is still important to talk about those casinos, and that's where we're going to shift now. Starting with the biggest trend that has happened for these casinos, and number 2 on our reason, which is sports gambling becoming legalized. Rewind the clock for a second back to 2018 when the Supreme Court overturned a federal ban. At the time, basically, you could only sports bet in Nevada. But after this, in a few years, we've completely flipped on the issue. Most states now allow sports betting. And along with that, the advertising budget for these companies is absolutely enormous. DraftKings, FanDuel, Underdog, PrizePicks, they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars getting celebrities and influencers to push their product every year. And man, has it worked. As I'm writing this, the number 1 sports app on the App Store is not sports, it's not ESPN. ESPN and the NFL are second and third. The number 1 sports app is actually DraftKings. And in the top 10, half of those apps are sports betting. It's insane. There's 2 reasons for this. Obviously, one, hundreds of millions in advertising. But the second is what are called inducements, which is when these apps will incentivize players to download them and place a bet. Sometimes literally offering what seems like free money.
Just turned $5 into $150 in bonus bets.
New customers bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win.
New customers get risk-free bets up to $2,000.
Now look, the reason casinos do this is kind of obvious. If they can make you place 1 bet, you're more likely to place the 2nd, 3rd, and 100th. But even setting aside the fine print of these weird offers, does it not strike anyone else as weird that we're allowing gambling companies to give away free stuff? Imagine the cigarette industry told you, buy your first pack, get 50 free packs free to get you started. Imagine Budweiser said, shotgun 1, they'll send you a case for fun. It's insane. And yet, that's exactly what these sports betting apps are doing. It's a lifestyle how they get these players. And once you're in, these apps will also cater to their biggest players, biggest losers, called VIPs. They will send them gifts as they spend their life savings. And there have been multiple lawsuits actually about this. And to make it worse, it's the opposite. And you actually win too much on these apps, they will try to limit your betting, as one investigation found.
If you show again to effectively handicap a game and beat the sportsbook, they will limit your bets and essentially kick you out of the sportsbook. They will not let you win.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how sportsbooks treat you once you start winning? They don't want to accept your bets.
Yeah, it turns out the casinos actually hate the exact player that's featured in all of their advertising. The guy who actually wins too much money. Which is actually so crooked when you think about it, that if you're one of the few people who achieve what they're promoting, they actually don't want you. Now, as I was writing this story, another massive scandal actually broke in the sports betting world, which is even more corrupt than not allowing winners.
But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years.
That's right. The FBI just exposed a massive sports rigging scheme that was using these apps to win money on rigged basketball. One example of this was March 23rd, 2023, when an NBA player, Terry Rozier, told a friend ahead of time that he was going to go out early on a foot injury. And so that night, $200,000 in bets took place on his underperformance because no one else knew that he was injured. And a few minutes after Terry kind of limping around, he left the game and the bets paid off. A few days later, Terry Rozier and his friend allegedly counted the money at his house from the fraudulent wagering scheme. And this was one of several rigged games the FBI alleged, but the media was quick to point out this isn't even the first time someone was caught doing something like this.
Jonathan Porter, who played for the Toronto Raptors, has already pled guilty. He's awaiting sentencing for doing just what Rozier and Jones are accused of. So this train has already left the station, Laura. And I have to tell you, when Jeff Teague, an NBA player, says, oh, there's betting everywhere, it is everywhere. I've done ads for DraftKings. LeBron James has done ads for DraftKings. In fact, ESPN, when they were reporting this story this morning, they're having programming, people talking just like you and me, talking about this scandal in the press conference the FBI was giving, and underneath them on the ticker was an ad for ESPN Bet, which is ESPN's own sportsbook.
Yeah, the irony of all of it is that the same people who condemn illegal betting going on are simultaneously pushing the sports books, which create the opportunity. And at some point, the producers on ESPN actually noticed it. And see if you can spot the moment they try to fix the sportsbook ad in the corner.
You hear a lot about legal sports gambling on this show. The Bussin' Boys, obviously sports gambling is a huge part of what you do, so we put those all out there as a preamble because it might be in the back of people's minds, and we acknowledge that this is a different time and place. However, there is a fine line, not so fine, there is a bold line that obviously has to be drawn.
Well, that's a little awkward. You're actually supposed to remove the ad for sports betting before talking about sports rigging. And honestly, we only hit the tip of the iceberg here because we've since learned these professional leagues are useless at catching this stuff. Turns out the NBA already investigated Terry Rozier before the FBI indictment for that exact game. And they cleared him because the NBA commissioner said there was insufficient evidence.
Ultimately concluded that there was insufficient evidence despite that aberrational behavior to move forward.
Right. So even with aberrational activity, they had the right game, the right guy, and the NBA couldn't find enough evidence. I mean, the more money that goes into sports betting, the more this will be a problem. And the leagues are clearly not equipped to handle it. But people look the other way because the money's too good. And I want to now address the size of these betting markets because they're absolutely enormous in ways most people don't understand. And to get our heads around it, we look at some surveys. One study estimates that 42% of all Americans and almost half of men my age have an online sports betting account. Another estimates that 1 in 4 people have placed a bet on sports, and 1 in 5 placed a bet in the last year. Like with all surveys, margins of error here, but the data mostly agree. Sports betting is very widespread, extremely popular among men, and for the ones who get addicted, it's financially devastating. One recent study looked at Americans' finances before and after sports betting was legalized by their state. They found that bankruptcy rates rise approximately 10% after legalization. Another paper looked at financial stability, noting that for households that do bet, they spend on average about $720 per year in sports betting. And the study found that for every dollar of deposits for betting, there's a reduction in net investments of just under $1. As people gamble more, they invest less, which means their financial future is worse. Makes sense. But this is especially true of problem gamblers or gambling addicts. To be clear, this is not something that affects all gamblers. Roughly 1% of the world population suffers from this. It's more common among people who bet regularly and bet online. The things that sports gambling encourages. Problem gambling completely obliterates people's finances and affects more than just the gambler, because as they beg, borrow, or steal to continue their addiction, it affects everyone around them. And I do mean steal. Roughly half of gambling addicts commit crimes, and most of those crimes continue gambling, often leading to a spiral where the addict doesn't see a way out. Why problem gambling is the highest suicide rates of any substance addiction.
Yeah.
You tried this before. Through bed. Yeah. Two. And it did nothing. No, literally, I mean nothing. Absolute silence. All the moralizing, the anti-gambling. You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story. A year ago, I was offered $20,000 to do a video by casino. I said no and made a whole series about it, but what I didn't tell you is that later I was offered $1 million to cover my legal fees in an ongoing case. Now, this was offered by a person who said they wanted to remain anonymous, no strings attached, very nice person.